Thank you, Mr. Moderator, and good evening to my fellow opposition. And good evening to the members of the public here in attendance and those listening on the radio and via the internet. It's a pleasure to be here for the second time in 2 weeks. And I want to thank the Literary and Reading Society for having the foresight and wisdom to put on these debates so that everyone can have a chance to understand what the candidates are about, the seriousness of this coming election, and what it means for Anguilla's history and also for Anguilla's future going forward. You know, Anguilla is at a crossroads. In 2010, the Anguilla United Movement came into power. The economy was in a serious tailspin. It has been stabilized. We are where we are now. And we want to make sure that you, the people, understand that it's necessary to continue this progress which the Anguilla United Movement has made. You've listened to the political platforms, the debates, and now it's time for us to show you what visionary leadership is about, and you will choose who you want to lead you into the next 5 years of government and into the future of Anguilla. I want to say it's a pleasure again to be here because I think that the Anguilla United Movement represents what Anguilla stands for, its values. It stands for economic progress. It stands for everyone given a chance to succeed. And that is why we are here. And with an able-bodied group of candidates, I think that it is up to you to put us back into power so that we can continue to lead. Thank you.
And good evening to all those who take the time to come out to these very important debates here at the Rodney MacArthur Parade Auditorium. I'm pleased that the Anguilla College Literary Debating Society put on these events. Of course, it's the second time that they've done so. But I believe that on this occasion, we've had an opportunity to witness all the candidates who are participating in this election present themselves to you, the people of Anguilla. And I'm sure that you here in the audience will have an upfront seat to not only hear what they say, but also look at their demeanor in delivering those presentations. I believe it's important that we have these events and that this will become one of the elements, the events which characterizes elections going forward. This is important because it allows the candidates to really present themselves and allow you to make those assessments firsthand on basically the content of the candidates in terms of their programs, their vision for Anguilla, as well as to assess their ability to articulate those visions to present themselves to you. I have been the leader of the Anguilla United Front since 2010, but I've been involved in politics since 1980. I've had 34 years of experience. I'm the most experienced candidate in this election. I bring to the platform wide range of experience as Minister of Finance and Minister of Social Development, as a member of the opposition, I've been on all sides of the spectrum. And I believe that the team that I have along with me to deliver that vision is a very capable team. And we are here to grow, increase opportunities, embrace you, and care for all people like you. I thank you all very much.
Moderator, members of the Literary and Reading Society, principal of the Albina Lake College Comprehensive School, teachers of the Albina Lake College Comprehensive School, students of the Albina Lake College Comprehensive School, audience present, audience listening via radio and via the World Wide Web. Thank you very much for affording me the opportunity to speak to you, the people of Anguilla, once again. forward movement and to the development of our people, of our society. We started the journey back in 1967 to pursue a way of life that was going to deliver new hope and opportunity for the people of this country. And here we are some 47 years later. We seem to have lost our way. Our leaders over the last 25 and 30 years, they have failed us. Some of them boast of having in excess of 30 years experience, but 30 years of experience and to have thrown Angola over a physical cliff is nothing short of irresponsible. And we've given the people of the Angola United Movement a chance to try to recover, and they've been trying. But the truth of the fact is, when you talk to the average person in Angola, things continue to get worse. We therefore believe that we need real change in the leadership in this country.
Modern politics involves many complex factors in the art of negotiation, networking, and diplomacy. Gentlemen, please tell us how, as leader of the next government, you would be the most capable representative for Angola overseas.
That's a very good question. I have in excess of 30 years experience as a senior manager. I've actually traveled all over the world, all through Europe, into Asia, into North America, into South America, and have had occasions to be part of delegations representing either telecommunications. On at least one occasion, I represented the Chamber of Commerce in Germany. But additionally, I have an MBA and a concentration in international business, international law. In my job as a senior executive of Cable & Wireless, reaching to the highest level as the executive vice president, I've been part of teams representing my company in places like Monaco. I've represented in North America, I've represented in South America, and throughout the entire Caribbean. I interface with many leaders across the region. I interface with many leaders even in the United States. So I actually have a lot of experience interacting with people. I've been trained in negotiating. So I'm a trained negotiator. I have negotiated many deals for Cable & Wireless over the many years. So I believe I'm able qualified to represent Angola locally, regionally, and internationally.
I came to this business of politics over 34 years ago. And I came to the platform for further development, personal development, the skills of the disciplines in which I've been trained in economics and politics, to the master's and all the dissertation, the doctoral level. And that is beside the point. The fact is that over the last 34 years, as a minister of government, for 19 of those years, I've been actively involved in all kinds of negotiations in all parts of the world. I won't even mention where they are. The fact is, on a regular basis, as Minister of Finance, I found myself in various forums, international forums and regional forums, to discuss issues affecting this country, and I've equipped myself well. I believe that the record will show that over the 16 years that I have been Minister of Finance, I have been a member of the Monetary Council of the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank. I've been a governor of the Caribbean Development Bank, which is representing the overseas territories. I've been a member of the European Union Commission for Overseas Territories, where I have fought for the overseas territories in the parliament on issues of transshipment and various other issues affecting these territories. So I'm fully versed in all these aspects of negotiation on the governance level, on the national level, and political level. This is not about business, this is about politics, and politics and governance involves other issues, other skills, which in the normal operations of a CEO might not come to the fore because you have the political pressures, the issues that impact international politics, is based on the power relationship of the actors involved. So I think I have a great experience in this.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Just to correct you, although you have leeway as a moderator, the Anglo United Movement is a movement. It's not a political party. It's a nationalistic movement. As a negotiator, from medical school, I was regional director for the Student National Medical Association. That represented all minority medical students in America. I negotiated at Yale for increased minority student admissions. I negotiated to start an office for minority students. These are things that I had to do as one of 10%. Basically, the university only took 10% medical students who are of a different color. This took diplomacy. It took getting through to the dean, to the presidents of the university, let them understand that what was important, I was able to represent that and present those facts and present those issues in a manner that these positive results were performed. Also, on the political arena, in the United States, I've met with members from the House of Representatives, senators, even President Obama and his advisors. I've negotiated for access for minority patients. And so that these are things that you're operating from a position not of strength because you're not a majority, but from a position of power, from a position of passion. And so this is what I bring to this forum. I bring a certain ability to get the job done. And so it doesn't matter that others say they have 30 years experience in politics or 16 years on the Monetary Council. I'm sure later on we will discuss how that turned out. And so I say, as the leader, we can do that.
Yes, I thought it important to speak to the issue raised by Mr. Banks when he claimed that what is required is not business and management skills. If you do any research, you will find that the most suited people to lead a nation in these days are people with business and management skills. So I say to you, Mr. Banks, you want to go and do a bit of research. Because the reason why Angola is where it is today is because we were thrown over the fiscal cliff. Our economy was plunged into a disaster because of the lack of business, management, and financial skills. That's why we are where we are today. And it's likely to take quite some time for us to recover because of the mistakes of an irresponsible, unqualified Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. First of all, Mr. Hunch started from a false premise. I did not say that negotiations require. I did not require. I said that the requirement for negotiation for a nation on the international arena involves other issues besides those skills of the CEO of a business. Because it involves an understanding of the politics, the oral relationship between the actors involved. This is the basic aspect of politics 101. Because it's not only what you can negotiate by the bottom line as companies do, but what you can negotiate for your people. It's based on
Voters will judge your parties not only on your candidate's ability, but also on the vision you will set forth for the country. With elections only weeks or months away, have you prepared and released your party's manifesto for perusal by the people?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Certainly, the candidate's ability will determine how the people vote. Our manifesto is it's ready, and it will be released shortly because, as you know, the elections are soon coming. And in that, it will show the vision that the Angola United Movement has for moving Angola into a new economic recovery and into the future. It will the plans that it had at that time, but has been slowly doing that, has signed 8 MOUs, 6 of which are already working. 2 more were signed yesterday, one in the east, one in Toronto, the French-Japan expansion. We also have plans for fish processing plant. We have plans to develop over 200 miles in the ocean. We have plans to develop a Marine Science Institute, because the ocean is where the lifeblood of Angola is going to be. And so these are plans that we have. We also have other plans to improve the economy, specifically to improve healthcare. We have to upgrade our healthcare system, and we have to build a new hospital. And this may not come soon, but it will come, because this is the commitment that the Angola United Movement has. And so our manifesto, Ms. Marino, is coming, and the people will see that this is serious politics, that this is serious concern about Angola's future, and we care about the people, and we will move Angola forward.
The manifesto of the Angola United Front, the new manifesto, is now in process. But the manifesto of 2010 says that the programs in that manifesto are for 2010 and beyond. And of course, I'm glad that the member for the leader of the Angola United Movement boasts of this manifesto, because it has actually been copied from the manifesto. So a lot of the principles involved in that manifesto are principles that we have espoused for many years. And we're all manifesto is an open book, printed document, circulated to the majority of the people who want to avail themselves of it, even tonight, who want to avail themselves of that manifesto. They're available. And I am amused by a number of candidates on these various platforms who get up and talk about new projects, new development, new ideas, as if they were developed by them. These ideas and these new projects have been developed by the Angola, have been a part of the Angola Fund vision for a very, very long time. Our vision is long-ranging. It goes beyond tomorrow, it goes beyond 5 years from now. It is to see Angola, a country where people of Angola develop to the extent that they can realize their dreams. And the dreams of all Angolans is to own a property, educate their children, make sure that they have a decent job to make a decent living. And also live in a country where there's harmony, where there's democracy, where there's peace, where there's tranquility, the ability for people to express their ideas in an atmosphere of security. This is what we strive for, to grow, to increase opportunities, to embrace young people, and to care for all people. Thank you very much.
Quick, the short answer is no. The manifesto is being developed, so it is not available for browser yet. We are still doing a bit of fine-tuning on that. But let me say that as we look to put together a manifesto for Angola moving forward, we can all write a document that becomes a paperweight once elected. We've seen that happen so much in this country. We have situations where I have actually looked at the manifesto of a number of political parties in Angola. And while some of my colleagues here might make reference to their plans and the things that they have done or they intend to do, the truth and the fact is, when you've served in government for in excess of 30 years, and some basic needs of the people in this country is still not met, it means that your manifesto is just a piece of paper. As a nation, we are still grappling with fundamentals. Minimum wage. I've been hearing about minimum wage forever. I've been hearing about health insurance for the people in this country forever. I've been hearing about lots of transformation things in this country forever, in manifestos and on platforms. The time has come to move Angola to a better place with people who can deliver. And I have a reputation of over 30 years of delivery. This can be verified. That's why I reached as far in cable lines as I reached. That's why I reached as
Dr. Webster mentioned the fact that he made a deficit of $70 million. Mr. Webster, I've heard this over and over again from several platforms, including the government, that they made a deficit of $70 million. The government of Electoral never met a deficit of $70 million that they had to deal with. That deficit was financed by the United Front from its reserves and from borrowing that they did to facilitate that. In addition, the second question, Mr. Hodge speaks about his success in Cayman Islands. We're talking about two different organizations. In Cayman Islands, you have a responsibility to your shareholders and directors and managers. In government, you have a responsibility to the customers and the people that you serve. There is no emphasis on that bottom line. And as a monopoly in Cayman Islands, you can do almost anything. That's why I'm so proud of the fact that I was a part of the liberalization of telecommunications.
Thank you, Mr. Banks.
So,
thank you very much, Mr. Banks.
And, you know, these are not numbers that I pulled out of a hat. This is Mark Watson and Alan Rowe. These were consultants that came from the Oxford Consulting Group in England that looked at our status in 2010 and saw that these numbers were correct. In fact, the results that our Honorable Former Minister of Finance talks about, the results were already evaporated by the end of September 2009. But I want to get to this point that we stole his manifesto. Because if we stole it, we did it better. They signed 10 MOAs. Only 2 signed. Flag went the funk. Viceroy went bankrupt. The Anglo United Movement stayed there at Viceroy. And so did the we have shown him how to do it. Maybe we can show him how to do good governance.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Banks made reference to the difference between the way corporations work and the way government works. When you work for a corporation, you have a lot of stakeholders. When you're in government, the stakeholder that you have, you're accountable to are the voters. When you run a corporation, your stakeholders are customers, government, shareholders, and the like. So you have a lot of stakeholders when you run a corporation. You got to clear balancing act all the time. Very different.
And River is experiencing decreased landfill capacity. How will your party tackle the current waste management issues facing Anguilla?
thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. The landfill issues facing Anguilla are not unique to several parts of the world. We don't have to reinvent the wheel to deal with those issues. Just have to choose a process which is most effective in dealing with our unique situation. At the present time, the government of Angola is using a landfill process which involves covering and compacting garbage. There are other processes which includes incinerating garbage. There are other processes which include separating garbage and disposing of it in different ways. Like, for example, getting the scrap metal out, getting the bottles out, getting the plastics out, and therefore using them to create some kind of business opportunity for somebody else within the community. We believe that the time has come for us to look seriously at the issue of the disposal of garbage. The government is looking at the waste energy problem. And I believe that in terms of that, there are some serious concerns that the people of Angola have. The fact is, that the waste energy project, which to my mind is one of the solutions that they're progressing, is a very dangerous idea. It's dangerous because the process allows toxic materials to dissipate into the atmosphere. And we cannot afford that kind of risk. Now, granted, the government of Angola has not yet approved that undertaking. But it seems to me that the enthusiasm which a number of ministers of the government are progressing that there's cause for concern. The LDC have overruled the project because of their concern. The number of people in the community have spoken. And in fact, one citizen in the community, as a result of the burning that occurred at Carriacou, have been able to engage the government in a suit.
Thank you.
Which he has submitted.
Thank you, Mr. Banks.
It's a very serious undertaking, and we have to look at it very carefully. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
The issue with the waste management in Angola generally, it is clear that there has been a lack of planning and management of the landfill site. We've had a very dangerous thing happen during the construction of the airport. That is, the government at the time, the Angolan front government, allowed the mall to be removed down to the aquifer. So a lot of toxic stuff from that garbage is able to leak out into the ocean and do irreparable damage to coral reefs. Major issue. Now, we need to look at best practices around the world in terms of how other people tend to deal with garbage. Our population is extremely small. If we were to look at what's going on in Bermuda, how they handle their garbage. Bermuda is an island that is just 21 square miles, with a population in excess of 75,000 people. Why aren't we looking at markets like that? We've got to look at garbage separation. We've got to look at issues of compaction. We have to look at as Mr. Banks rightly said, we've got to look at opportunities maybe to get scrap metal separated and taken off island to create some sort of business. We ought to look at the possibility of melting down plastics, because it takes up to 50 years, if not longer, for plastics to decompose. So we ought to be forward thinking, well, we shouldn't be starting now. This is something that a responsible government would have been looking at over the last 20, 30 years. Now we're planning to look at fixing it going forward. Why wasn't it fixed in the last 25, 30 years when Mr. Banks was in government for some 30 years?
I think that in modern society, just dumping garbage at a site or burying it, that is passé. We have to go into recycling. Certainly, the waste that we use, if we can come up with a recycling program, as most advanced countries are doing, that will take some of the necessary stuff that has to go into the landfill. I also think that we should do mulching. Mulching is where your flora and trees and wood organisms can be used to destroy that, and then that can be used in the agriculture industry. So that will save space. But during the airport expansion that happened, the former government allowed them to dig down into the water table, and so that allowed contamination of the water table. And our landfill right now is nearing the end of its life. So if we don't come up with something like taking the junk, which is metal, shipping that overseas where it can be recycled, we have to come up with the ways to power generation. And there are different techniques to do this, including pyrolysis. When you look at the environmental impact assessment study, it shows that the toxins which Mr. Banks speaks about are of minuscule levels, just about what occur naturally in the environment. And so this is a good method to generate power, to lower and give us cleaner energy, to lower the electricity bills so that our businesses are not strapped, so that in our homes we have lower cost of electricity. But it also extends the life of our landfill. So these are options which we have to consider, and we have to make sure that they happen now.
One of the things that we need to notice right now, what's happening right now, is the government of Angola has been unable in almost 2 years to get a contractor to manage the landfills. In almost 2 years, they were able to get a permanent contractor to manage the landfills. Secondly, it's been knocked about the issues that the aquifer has been polluted as a result of the excavation of more for the extension of the I don't know where those records are coming from. The fact is, a landfill site like Carriacou, they will always be filtered into the aquifer. And we have to try our best to continue these things as well as possible, as effective as possible. And I want to say to you that the government of Angola, including the Fund government, has been involved in this process for a long time. And we believe that one of the solutions for any of the issues in Angola has nothing to do with It has to do with utilizing the available resources we have in solar and wind that we have espoused since 2006.
Gentlemen, you have watched them oppose and lead over the years. What should be the legacy of the outgoing, long-serving public servant, the Honorable Chief Minister, Mr. Hubert Hughes?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. One word, a patriot. That's two. The Honorable Mr. Hughes, he came back from England to Anguilla to represent his people. He could have stayed abroad, he could have lived a lavish life, but he felt that Anguilla's future and the people of Anguilla having economic prosperity, having the ability to move forward so that they could have paved roads and electricity and running water. These are the things that he wanted to see done, and so he came back and basically gave his life for this country. The longest serving politician in Anguilla. And so when you listen to him, you can feel the commitment that he has, the dedication to making sure that all Anguillians move forward. That there's no low class and high class. That we have one Anguilla class. That is the legacy of our outgoing Chief Minister, the Honorable Mr. Hubert Benjamin Hughes. And so, when the annals of Anguilla are written, it will sit right up there with our Chief Minister, the Honorable James Ronald Webster. They'll be right next to him, the Honorable Hubert Benjamin Hughes. Thank you.
Well, the only legacy that I can identify, the Honorable Chief Minister, Mr. Hubert Hughes, is the legacy of opposition. He has over the years been a very effective personal opposition because basically he opposes everything in the opposition and he makes sure that the people get an opportunity to see the other side of the point. But in terms of his effectiveness as a leader in government, I have worked and I've been brought kicking and screaming into a coalition with him in 1994. And I've noted that he does not pay attention to detail. He's more interested in doing things that have absolutely no relationship to the effective implementation of policy on the ground. As a consequence of that, in this period, now that he's leader of government business and Chief Minister, he has a problem because he has not surrounded himself in government as elected officials with senior and experienced ministers who can assist him in carrying out his policy. And this has been the problem of this government. And I believe that Mr. Hughes has got to be, can only be reminded as somebody who has been effective opposition. He opposed the revolution. He raised the revolution and his efforts for years and years. Even as Chief Minister on the various park celebrations, he has delegated the revolution to a rebellion. He has insulted the leader, the father of the nation, on the Webster Park line holiday. He has tried to excuse himself from functions on the Anguilla Day celebration. So I believe that the only legacy that I can associate with Mr. Hughes is the legacy of opposition.
I've known Mr. Hughes all my life, probably from the time I was about 8 years old. And Mr. Hughes has some incredible abilities. One is, he is probably the biggest talker I've ever met in my life. He can talk. Mr. Hughes also has an ability to recall in great detail. And the thing is, it's factual, most of it. Most of it, recalling ability is factual. So he's a good orator. He's a humble man, down to earth. It's not unusual to see him with slippers with a shirt open, walking through the valley. Even at his age, he would do it. The other thing about Mr. Hughes that's interesting is that he seems to have no luck. And that is, it's either the British altogether that's obstructing him from moving things forward. It's the public service who are altogether standing in his way of doing people's business. His incompetent ministers around him that's standing in his way of getting things done. But I tell you what, he will be remembered as a man who's able to persuade. He's been able to be elected in his constituency no matter what. Election He has an incredible ability to persuade. He is quite a politician.
The talk has been around since the days of the Anglo Revolution, independence. People are wondering, should we or should we not? If elected, will your government commit to a national poll and referendum on this issue?
The issue of independence is one that frustrates me. I would like to wake up tomorrow morning and be independent. That is the aspiration of every human being, of every nation. The truth and the fact is, our leaders, both past and present, they have failed us in that they have not prepared us for independence. I believe that with a sense of urgency, we must move forward to put those systems of governance in place and to ensure that we have an economy that is sustainable, that will deliver for the people of this country going forward. If we can achieve those things within the next 5 years, I would be a very proud person to take the issue of pursuit of independence to the people by a vote. By all means, thank you.
Independence, as we knew it, is almost becoming irrelevant nowadays. But I believe it's an important aspiration for any people to aspire to have more self-determination, more autonomy in the governance of their own affairs. Effectively, the independent nations of the Caribbean have now been subjugated to another form of dependency. They have not relied on certain international treaties and commitments that are used by the developed nations of the world, the first nations of the world, to force them to comply, to do their bidding. And I believe that as we go forward, more and more of this will take place because of globalization, the globalization of regulation, the globalization of the financial sector, the globalization of all aspects of our development. Even human rights are being globalized. In this sense, cultural aspects of the various cultures of the world are being impacted upon by what the international agencies require as a standard of behavior and conduct among the peoples of the world. This involves things like the issue of the decriminalization of homosexuality, capital punishment, the discipline of our children as it relates to the way they live in a custom to this region. So independence is an important issue, and I believe that the people of the country must only aspire to this. The process must involve a referendum.
I agree that it is the aspiration of many people to be free. And certainly, we have shared different types of political affiliations over the past years with the British. And I think that in an age of mutual respect, in an age of interrelations, that we should be, and with our overseas partners, have a better relationship. But certainly I think if they treated us like they treat St. Helena and the Falkland Islands, where whatever they need to develop their economies, they get, such as the import, such as the fishing license regimes. If there was the necessary grants, our economic engine can be pushed forward with their help, with their expertise, then I think that we can survive a little longer with that type of arrangement. We certainly would need more internal self-government. We would have good governance. We would need to educate our people and our public service so that we can move things in that direction. We certainly would need to have our banking systems modernized and again recapitalized so that we can have that sense that they're looking out for us as we continue to respect them. But I think that the goal is to move towards full independence. And this should happen And if it does, that we get all the other things I discussed earlier done within this first term, we will move towards a referendum so that the people can decide if they want to move to independence or if they want to stay as an overseas territory. And I think that when the people speak, they will realize that independence is the right of every people.
One of the things that we need to be mindful of is that independence affords us to choose our friends. Our friendship with Britain has been imposed on us, and I'm not sure if we really want to be Britain's friend, but unfortunately that's where we are. If we were independent today, having the proper management structures in place, we, for example, could be benefiting from things like petrol carriers. We could be benefiting from support from places like Taiwan and China and Japan. They want our vote around the United Nations scale as well. Yeah? So what we need is a proper management structure so we can actually exploit these opportunities.
About all the discussion, we do know that once we get independent, we should be friends. But the fact is that even right now, the partner that we have in our efforts to support us, the United Kingdom government, and a lot of it has to do with our approach, our style and attitude in negotiating with people. Because right now, 5 territories, independent territories of the Caribbean, are being afforded $75 million in assistance from the British government. They've had $75 million before, and for the period 2015 to 2020, another $75 million. They have been able to negotiate that, and they are not in a territory. They have been able to get support from the European Union, of which the United Kingdom is a part. We need to exploit our opportunity as a member of the United Kingdom and as a member of the UK as a result of that relationship.
I don't think that Mr. Knight is naive at all. British taxpayers are not going to bankroll us. It's not going to happen. We're dreaming. So the thing that you can charge the British and they can deliver for us, you're dreaming.
Mr. Moderator, as the member mentioned, I am not naive, but I know the art of negotiation. And I know what I've been able to achieve as a minister of government with the British government, despite all the things that this chief minister and this government talk about.
There is a school of thought in Anguilla that the Westminster model of electing our leaders is not best suited for Anguilla. Would your party support island-wide elections for our ministers of government, and especially for our chief minister?
The system of government that we have today has its drawbacks. The Westminster system has its drawbacks in application to a small place like that. And I think it is perhaps more effective to have a hybrid of the two as exists in the British Virgin Islands. In the British Virgin Islands, you have persons who run the constituency level. So therefore they have an opportunity to represent their constituents on that level. Then you have a number of members who run island level. So as a consequence, they have the ability to look at more national issues. So you have one group of elected representatives dealing with the constituency level, because all politics is local to a certain extent. But if you're in a position to represent the entire island because of being elected on a national level, it gives you the opportunity to do just that, rather than just focus on a narrow constituency. So I believe that's a very effective way of dealing with governance in small territories. I believe that's important that we understand that the electoral process needs to be such that the constituents, the people who elect us, have a clear understanding of the issues that are presented and the capability, the capacity of leaders to deliver the things that people need. As a consequence, we have to educate them in what it is that is required for national development, what it is that is required to formulate solutions for the national progress and advancement of the country, what it is that is important to ensure that they are represented at all levels, at home and abroad. I believe the issue is more about people understanding what politicians need to do to represent them. So I support a hybrid of national elections and constituency parliaments?
Yes, I would support island-wide elections. And the reason why I would do that is that Angola is a small population. In fact, there are villages in the United States that have 3 or 4 times the population of Angola. And they choose their mayor, they choose their representative, and throughout the whole town. I think that that would allow our politicians to not concentrate all the development in one area. Not that they're going to think about the way the village that they grew up in. I mean, certainly in the past, we've had deficits where our representatives have not represented us fully. But I think that it allows you to, as a politician, to develop the whole island, to spread it out. It also allows better representation, because if there's more than one excellent candidate from the same district, then 2 or more may be elected and to represent Angola. So I think that I agree that there should be island-wide elections. Certainly in terms of the chief minister, it is better for the whole of Angola to choose who is the leader of the government rather than just one district to determine that. And I think that it would be helpful for us to move in that direction through constitutional electoral reform. So I agree with that.
Yes, I think that the Westminster system has certainly failed us. But our politicians over the years, they've enjoyed it, they've loved it. Because what they've been able to do is to, the popular guy, the party leader, is able to get some popular puppets in the communities, in the constituencies, and then when he gets in charge, it's like having the leader and the classroom with these folks who he or she can manipulate. It is not working for Angola. It's not working for Angola. What I would recommend is that we have an upper house and a lower house. That is, the executive is elected island-wide, and you get the first 5 or 6 that pass the post will become your ministers, and they will choose a chief minister, and then we'll have the village folks who will be elected as well. They will be the lower house. So we have a lower house and an upper house. And we cut the salaries for everybody, because a small country like this cannot afford the kind of salaries that's being paid to ministers of government right now.
With widespread reading problems, many students obtaining less than 5 system classes, behavioral issues persisting, and overcrowded classes, is it not fair to say that the comprehensive system of education has outlived its usefulness?
You know, I came up through the common entrance system, and I thought it was a great system to have, because when you got to grade 6, you took an exam, and if you passed that exam, then you went to high school. You were either on the academic side, if you did well, or on the senior side, if you didn't do so well. And then that would lead you through the academics, or it led you through the senior, then you could go to vocation. Comprehensive system I like because it gives everybody a chance to attend high school. Because not everybody learns at the same rate. So you get a chance through the system to develop. And some may be gifted and they go to a higher band, and then the lower bands for those who are not as gifted. But I know, and I heard the other day, that you can move up the ranks in the bands. So I think that is a good system. Now, the reading problems that we have to incentivize our teachers. They have to be motivated to teach our students. And so I think that we have to have incentives. If your class does well, you get some kind of a bonus, or you get some kind of an incentive so that you are promoted. These are the things that we have to do for a teacher. Our students also have to be motivated so that they know that the more subjects they get, the better they will do. We have scholarships that will be available. We have grants that will be available. We will appeal to outside institutions. We may even offer scholarship in the college. We have other ways of vocational studies that if you're not as academically inclined, you can get into these right away. So I think that comprehensive system, it can be worked on. It can be tweaked. It's not necessarily outdated, and I think it's still a good system for Angola.
I think that comprehensive education does give hope to to children who would otherwise not have an opportunity to have a secondary education. The issue that we need to address in Angola is a fundamental issue, and that is when we identify children as having difficulty grasping the fundamentals of education, reading, computation, critical thinking, we ought to fix those problems as early as we can. That brings me to the point that there is a need for greater focus on early childhood education. I would implore our educators to look at the Finland model. In Finland, people start going to school at age 7. By age 7, you actually have an enormous amount of skills. And rather than focusing our children on having 16 and 17 CXEs, we ought to focus our children around having core skills of reading, computation, and analytical ability, and these days some IT skills and maybe a few other skills. But we don't need to have a whole wide array of subjects and call it education when some of the fundamental skills that's critical for education are, well, they're not comfortable with them. So it's critical, and Finland is the model to look at. Finland leads the world in academic excellence, the world, upper high school level.
Comprehensive education is the most effective form of education that we have had in the world over the history of education. What it requires is that we put in place those support systems which makes it more efficient in responding to the needs of students in the comprehensive school. It gives students the opportunity, moving from primary school, they have an opportunity to move on. Those who are low or slow learners to move on into secondary education. And then we have an opportunity at that point to deal with their specific issues, whether it's reading, computation, other skills that are required to ensure they have a wholesome education. So I believe comprehensive education is very important. It's the most successful form of education that has been introduced in Angola. We need to continue with it. We need to improve it, enhance the quality of education that we need to assist our children in achieving their life objectives.
What is more important in promoting teachers and public servants as a whole? Experience or academic qualifications?
Thank you, Mr. Margaret. I believe that both are important. The important aspect of promoting persons in the public service or within education is an interview process which involves performance evaluation of the teacher, of the public servant, for the particular position to which he's aspiring or to which he's applying. Very often we promote people because they've been there long experience. Very often we promote people because they have degrees, more degrees than the other person. But at the end of the day, we have to assess their performance in the workplace to determine whether or not their promotion will affect or improve the overall situation, whether it's in the education system, the school, or whether it's a particular partner with that individual works. So it cannot be one or the other. It must be a combination of both through performance evaluation process, analysis. It tells you which individual, which candidate is most suited to be promoted to a particular position. And that involves their leadership skills, their ability to ensure that the programs that they have been entrusted with are implemented, and a host of other things having to do with their ability to be effective managers, effective employees within the system.
I agree that both elements are necessary for promotion. Certainly, one can have all the academic qualifications, but if your performance is poor, if you can't get along with the children, if your administrative skills are bad, then what's the sense of being promoted? And that, I agree, is necessary. Both are necessary for teachers. And then we go to public servants in general. And I think that those two attributes are also necessary. And one of the things in our public service is there's a word that comes before secretary, and it's called permanent, which means that if you're a permanent secretary, you cannot be terminated. And this is something that has forced us at times to have trouble getting things done. Now I think that any public servant should be committed to the good of the country, to the good of the people that they represent. And so I said we should remove the permanent part. And then we should go ahead and allow them to show by their performance, by their ability to get the job done, that they need to be there, to continue, to be promoted, and to have the will of the people, and to take the mandates of the political directorate where they need to be to move Angola forward. So I said, we need both.
I think I would agree with both of my colleagues with this, except I think that a lot of times education is overrated. What is education at the end of the day? It took me many years to realize that what education is just a way that you assimilate information from other people's experiences in a short period of time. So you go to school and you read these books, and you read books about other people's experiences. So if somebody can do the job, that is really the measure. But having said that, most people will get education through a course of study. But a lot of times, you find that some people are promoted in positions where they can't function, even though they're highly qualified. And some of the most qualified people on this island are responsible for plunging Angola in financial and economic crisis.
We recently celebrated Christian Heritage Week in Anguilla for the first time. Activities included speakers addressing the student body at the Albina Lake Hodge Comprehensive School. Such an event would be unheard of in the USA or Europe because it is said that it infringes on the rights of others. How do you view this issue in light of our Christian heritage?
This is an issue. It's a major issue. Because we are a British overseas territory, and because we are subjected to the European Convention on Human Rights, we have no choice really but to comply. And it begs a question as to where our world is going. The fundamental values that hold most societies together tend to come from Christian values, Christian thinking, or maybe I should say religious thinking, because it might be from other faiths as well, other than the Christian religion. But what we are finding more and more is that we're living in a world where God, church, teachings of Christianity, and even other religions are being taken out of our society generally. And it is posing a problem, around the world. There's an issue right now that's growing in Jamaica. Jamaica has pushed back on homosexuality, the homosexuality and gay marriage. And of course, Jamaica could find itself sanctioned. And that is where people might very well boycott Jamaica. And people will be told to not do business with Jamaica because Jamaica has taken a stand on the whole issue of gay marriage and homosexuality generally. So these are things that we've got to deal with throughout our community and around the world. But thank God we can still at least celebrate Christian Week in Angola. Thank you.
Thank God, Mr. Moderator, that we're not there yet. But we understand that we're living in a global village. And as I mentioned earlier, we had a discussion about independence. Independence at some point will become almost irrelevant. As Mr. Hodge pointed out, in Jamaica, because of their attitude to homosexuality, there's a possibility that during recession, that affects the economic development, and so on and so forth. I think the time has come for us as a society to recognize that there are certain aspects of the international community that we have got to address some cases we may need to accommodate if we have to survive. Or else, we have to take options which we may find as a result of taking those options, our own development can be implemented. I'm grateful that we don't live in that kind of society today where Christianity is frowned upon. I believe that Angola has survived as a nation because of its Christian beliefs and the great foundation that has been built over the years by our forebears. And long may that continue.
Just the very thing it says, Christian heritage. We are a God-fearing people. And I thank God that, He has brought us through the trials and tribulations that we have endured over time to make it this far. Now, I see no problem with religious leaders or having speakers go to the school and speak to the kids. If there was a course of religious education, then I think that is crossing the line, because I think that can be done in the home and in the church. But if we expect the church to help us with the maladies of our youth, such as crime and violence and self-esteem problems, I think that we have to encourage our religious leaders to be able to interact with our students, to be able to interact with us as people. And so we have to give them access to the students when they're in one accord. We can have them in a classroom or an auditorium, and we can speak to them to these issues, because I'm sure they're not in there having an evangelical service. I'm sure they're telling the students about what is necessary to keep them on the path, because if God is not in the midst of us, we will perish.
Throughout this debate series, all the candidates have proposed that the gravest issue facing the youths and Angola as a whole is unemployment. Please outline the economic recovery plan that your party has conceived for Angola.
The Angola United Movement has come up with an economic recovery plan which they have put in place starting from 2010 and which will extend through the 2015 elections all the way to probably about forever. Anyway, we have signed multiple MOUs, and 10 up to this point. 6 of them are in progress right now, providing construction jobs. Some of them are on stream, like the New Malihani, where people are going back to work. So it's not just in construction. This is also in the hospitality industry. We want to make sure that they are understudies in these hotels so that they're learning how to be general managers. We also want to put in a fish processing plant in District 1, so that, and also improve marketing, so that we can, when the cash comes in, it can be processed and exported also locally. This will provide jobs in District 1 specifically, but also for Anguillians. We also want to make sure they're long-line fishing vessels that are Anguillian-owned, which can be owned either by service on these vessels or direct capital put into these vessels, so that we can fish outside the 50-mile zone. Our waters are ours, and we should be the one capitalizing on that. We want to get money into the treasury. By now, the fishers who poach in our waters pay for licenses that they can fish there, and that money comes to us. We'll set quotas so that they don't fish out our water. But we also have in place for the youth. We have the Get Set program through Youth and Culture, where there'll be monies given to youth as grants so that they can develop businesses. We also have manufacturing policy, where there can be duty-free concessions. We have other programs that will be the Job Link-Up program, where some of our youth who have not walked the straight and narrow road will be as public mentors.
That's an excellent question. But I will say that the thing for the development of this economy is creating jobs, business opportunities, and capital investment. And that can only be done by ensuring that we have a government that creates an environment, a climate for investment, a climate for these things to take place. It is obvious that we have to diversify the economy. We cannot continue to rely on tourism alone. Within the tourism economy itself, there is a need for diversification. We need to have more marinas developed. We need to have various kinds of tourism, sports tourism, health tourism, music tourism, entertainment tourism, and a whole range of issues as a part of tourism. We also need to develop business centers that support the tourism sector. We need to support the linkage industries of tourism, agriculture, fishing, and so forth. Mr. Doctor spoke about a student economic zone, 2,200 miles north of England, which we have not exploited, which we need to exploit, not necessarily by putting resources and putting resources behind it, but finding ways not to reinvent the wheel, but taking an example from Auckland Islands and other places that have used these technologies. So, this is a difficult situation to explain to people, but it requires that we as a government need to. We are in an era where alternative energy is a critical issue. The United Countries is involved in this issue since 2006 and have put money and resources behind it. We believe that it is an important aspect of our development going forward. One of the major costs for any business is electricity, and we need to do something.
Thank you, Mr. Banks.
Job creation is the most important thing that we have got to deliver to the people of this country. When people have jobs, they create their own opportunity. What we have failed to do over the years in Angola is to have a government who understands business to begin with, to create an enabling environment to allow business to thrive. Singapore some years ago, their economy was in shambles. It was a third world country, fourth world country. Singapore had a delegation that went off to Jamaica to understand what Jamaica was doing. They went back to Singapore. Today, Singapore stands out as a model of economic development because they have removed bureaucracy. They've enabled their people, and Singapore is thriving with loose regulation in terms of removing all the inefficiencies from government. Singapore is thriving. What are we going to do in Angola? We in the Gulf Party believe that a renewable energy-led economic transformation will bring about many jobs in this country, in that industry, and other industries that will be affected as a consequence of electricity rates coming down by as much as 70%. This will position Angola for inward investment because the cost of doing business in Angola will be significantly reduced. We also have opportunities in agriculture, but not what we do here. We believe that we have to look to the Israelis and adopt some of the techniques from Israel. We believe that we need to have a retirement community in Angola where many homes will be built, and as a consequence, many jobs will be created. We need to mobilize this island to allow timeshare by our locally owned hotels, and that will create enormous jobs. Focus on tourism in a meaningful way, and jobs will come.
Thank you. In an article on www.globalexchange.org, it states, and I quote, "The International Monetary Fund, the IMF, has created an immoral system of modern-day colonialism that saps the poor. The IMF forced Haiti to open its market to imported, highly subsidized US rice. At the same time, it prohibited Haiti from subsidizing its own farmers. A US corporation called Early Rice now sells nearly 50% of the rice consumed in Haiti," unquote. Why was this notorious and often criticized financial body granted influence in resolving our banking crisis?
I don't know that the IMF was granted the opportunity to resolve our banking crisis. They have been a part of the partners involved in this process, which include the IMF, the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, the British government, and I think there's other elements of the Canadian government involved in this process as well. And I believe that internationally, the IMF is regarded as the institution which is responsible for worldwide regulation, and also because of its power and its resources, is able to provide support for independent nations in the world who have issues for financial and economic needs in their development. for the continent they have gotten that reputation. I believe that in the National Monetary Fund there are different aspects to the vision of the Monetary Fund. The aspect of the deal with regulation is highly influenced by the developed countries of the world, the United States, Japan, the UK, France, Germany, and so on and so forth. And I believe that a lot of the fixes that they put in place are not tailored to the needs of economies that can grow. Economies like the OECD, the issues that affect our development, in particular, as it relates to the indigenous banks, is an issue which more relates to the community banks in the United States. Community banks, like the indigenous banks of the OECD, are banks that deal with the specific developmental needs of the people of the country. They take into account the cultural spending and investment patterns of our people. They are concerned with the wealth creation, because on the basis of that wealth creation that exists within our economy, they are able to provide. So I think that the IMF is out of touch in a lot of these areas. But I have the regular support.
We need to understand something that is fundamental. The IMF is here to stay. And while you might think that we are out of touch, the IMF is here to stay. The world economy is being policed on many, many fronts. The world is flat, meaning that goods and services are going to be available at low prices, produced in any market around the world that can produce those goods and services at the most competitive price of a certain quality. That's the reality. That's the real world in which we live. Africa as a continent is now rising. Africa is rising because the leaders in Africa realize that they can no longer be engaged in conflict of interest and corruption because it's holding back the progress of their continent. Africa today is trading just under 300,000 senior managers because they realize that they have got to get it right if they're going to play on the world stage. The IMF is here to stay, and we have got to streamline and become productive and efficient and remove corruption, conflict of interest, and inefficiency from our society and position our people in Angola to survive in an increasingly challenging world.
We only have to realize why the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank came in August of 2013 for conservatorship in the two banks, National Bank of Angola and Caribbean Commercial Bank, to realize that things were bad with the banks. That's why they came in. In fact, in his speech on the day that they came in, the Honorable Chief Minister has said that they came in to stabilize the banks because these two banks account for greater than 75% of Angola's banking sector. Poor earnings performance, declining asset quality, high levels of non-performing loans, and weak corporate governance, which can be translated however you want to. So you have to get the ECCB couldn't come in by itself and say, and we will take care of Angola's banking problem. Because if you realize that the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank has oversight over these banks and should have known before 2013 that these banks were not performing well. They get a report every month, every quarter. There's certain persons who are on the Monetary Council who get reports also, who should have realized that at that time when they were in government. And so the IMF comes in as a regulatory agency. It comes in also for oversight. The World Bank also came in. These were necessary to make sure that Angola's banking sector is stabilized so that depositors are protected, shareholders are protected. But I think that the first part of the question goes back to what's called dependency theory. You take raw materials from a poorer country and send it to a rich country, and that comes back now
Mr. Hart made a comment at that time that IMF is here to stay. The fact that they're here to stay does not mean that they should not change their approach, because their record of support for the developing countries of the world has not been a good one. The countries of Africa cannot compare with the countries of the Caribbean. They have had a long experience in economic development, resources that far outweigh any resources that we have. And over the years, they have not practiced the best form of governance that has existed. The time has come for us as a region to understand that our issues of governance are important. But at the end of the day, the principles, the applications, the processes that are used by the International Monetary Fund have not resulted in any turnaround in the situation in the indigenous banks.
Yes, I think that maybe Mr. Banks is a bit naive. There is no way, no, I don't mean this in an offensive way, there is no way that Electoral will be able to influence change in the IMF. I mean, it's not going to happen. Let's be realistic. So you can complain all you want. Those are the rules of the game. It's like FATCA. Who can change FATCA? You think if Angola pushes back on FATCA, that FATCA is going to go away? Just like that, the IMF is here. They are going to impose on us. In 2012, the IMF did a report, a study on Angola's financial position. And they say that Angola's fiscal position is terrible, and that it was poorly managed over the years during the period of the Angola United Front during 2005 and 2006. IMF report for 2012. We'll have a look at it.
The IMF report of 2012 had absolutely nothing to do with the AEF government, because the AEF does not run the banks. There are issues in the banking sector, the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, as well as any other banking institution in the region, would have fallen down the job. But at the end of the day, if you examine the situation in the banking sector, the indigenous banking sector, you'll find that is no worse than the other part of our OECF region.
Yes, sure. Very brief comments. If that report of the IMF 2012 does not make the point, I would invite Mr. Banks to have a look at Mark Watson's report that was done in May of 2010 and see where the blame really lies for the disastrous financial position of Angola.
There is talk in Angola that one part of the answer to our economic woes is the need for an increase in our population that mere birth rates cannot achieve. One voter commented to the society, to the grouping, we need about 20,000 people to migrate to Angola over the next 10 years. Please comment on this important issue.
Yes, the short answer is I agree with the voter. Absolutely. We need to grow our population, but it has to happen carefully. And that is that we need to grow a population with people who got money to spend. Because if you grow a population with people who are going to come to Angola and be dependent on services that we have, it's going to put even more strain on the limited financial and fiscal resources that we have. So the things that the partners propose therefore is that we should look at economic residency. And that is where we attract active retired people, keyword being active retired people, to live in Angola with spending power of around $60,000 a year. These people will not be coming to Angola to build villas, they'll be coming to Angola to build smaller homes, two-bedroom homes thereabout. And these homes can be built throughout Angola. It will create enormous opportunities for people to build homes, enormous opportunities for all kinds of services to their homes, maintaining them, and I see this translating into a very big and booming, sustainable business for Angola. Additionally, we are of the view that we ought to encourage the Shenzhen Medical School, and by the way, I still stand by my word that it was not brought in by the Anglo United Front, but that young man he was the person who was responsible for initiating this. That is a fact. And so we see that as important to continue to expand it. We see us bringing a nursing school to Angola and a marine biology school to Angola as kinds of things that will help to grow a population with people with spending power.
Yes, he must be afraid of the bold. Thank you, Ms. Moderator. I agree that the population has to increase. And the exact numbers, we will figure that out over time, but I do think that we need to double the population that we have at least. This increases our tax base. It also allows people skilled workers, and I would first want Anguillians abroad to come home because we have the same cultural affiliations. We would know each other, they're family to us, so they would assimilate better into the population. Then we move to others of our Caribbean brothers and sisters because I think they also can help us to expand Anguilla, build homes, buy the homes that have been left behind by expats who have left. But it brings a certain level of education to our population, such as in technology, and also the exposure that they've had from being international. I think these are things that we need in Anguilla. It also helps to develop our education system because as we go into tertiary education, students will come into us. I know my learned colleague said that tertiary education in Anguilla is not something we want to move toward, but we do have tertiary education already in Anguilla Community College. But I think that we can advance the courses of study that are offered, and so that will allow us to have more people come in. Just like he wants to increase the students at the medical school, I think that is very important. But with that, we have to improve our healthcare system because they're not going to come here if they feel that they cannot be taken care of if, God forbid, something happens to them. So those are important. And with the medical tourism plan that we have, I think that also attracts international patients who will stay with us.
Before I go into my answer, I want to clarify 2 points. First of all, if Mr. Hodge wants to speak with the IMF, let him speak with the IMF. If he wants to speak with the Mark Watson plan, let him speak with that. Mark Watson plan did not discuss the issue of the IMF coming in the regulation plans. Secondly, the issue of the medical center, the St. James Medical Center, that was brought here and negotiated by the IMF in front. That has been a process that has been taking place for a long time, and we have been involved in memorandum of understanding which affected that. I don't think that we need time to spend on all those issues. But with regards to the increase of population, it's critical for a country to have a population mass that is able to afford its economy. One of the things that Mr. Hart mentioned is the importance of bringing people into Angola. Now, all people have spending power. Some people have more spending power than others. But we cannot restrict ourselves to people who have spending power alone in the investment sector. Because in the lower echelons of the society, they have small business enterprises. People who come to work and employ also have spending power. They rent, they buy food, they buy clothes, they buy a whole range of things. And I agree with Dr. Wilson. The first people we address are Anguillians who are living abroad. They need to be the ones who need to attract home first. Then we need to turn to our Caribbean nationals and try to attract them as well. But the issue of economic residency is a critical matter for an investment sector. It's important that we respond to that. It is the way to go, but we have to be cautious. Because right now, for example, the Swedish government is having issues because the Canadian government has refused their nationals easy access without visas to Canada because of the economic citizenship program. We are talking about the economic residency program. So we have to fashion that in a way.
Thank you.
Your point. Thank you very much.
I think Mr. Bank's point there about what is going on in St. Kitts is very different from what we're talking about in England. St. Kitts is actually selling passports. No resident that comes to Angola to retire will receive an Angola passport. That's established right up front. As we talk about attracting Angola does for us, folks who come here today, retired folks does for us, no matter what, they will stay here because they are living on their 401k, they have a sustainable source of income. So they're not relying on a job to stay in Angola. They're here, they're retired, and they're qualified to retire. They kind of have the wherewithal to live in Angola. Thank you.
I did not say that economic residency is not a way to proceed. I mentioned the pitfalls of economic citizenship because they are related in the way they apply. And we need to make sure that we don't fall in that trap. Secondly, I am not saying that persons who come in here, who spend money, who invest, who buy properties and so forth, should not be allowed. I'm saying that we need more, or all of the above. However, we need to focus, first of all, on our agricultural environment.
I don't quote exactly what Mr. Bax is saying. Absolutely. I mean, the issue is, I never raised the issue of someone becoming a citizen in Angola. The talk of the residents in Angola is that they live in Angola, they never ever become Angolan citizens. Let's make sure we're clear on that. Thank you.
Good evening, audience, candidates. A voter wrote in and asked, the National Health Insurance Plan seeks to ensure that our senior citizens are well cared for, and that is admirable, but there is no coverage for those working folks who are paying the most into the scheme. This does not seem fair. Gentlemen, please comment 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. I've been out front in criticizing the National Health Insurance pilot project. I've been involved in the initiation of national health insurance during our term of office. I have been in the trenches with the Honorable James Longback in the establishment of the Social Security Fund. I've been the Minister of Social Security in Angola for 16 years, responsible for social for 16 years. And I've worked along with the Minister of Health and the Ministry of Health in trying to progress a national health scheme. But what is happening now is something that is not sustainable. And first of all, the funds from Social Security must serve all the people in Social Security. You cannot have a pilot project which only involves people under 5 and people over 65. They are not the ones necessarily who contribute to the fund. Their family may have. But at the end of the day, if you want to have a pilot project, it should have in place a system which provides limited health coverage to all people. The way that the fund is introduced, it is not finance. It comes from the Social Development Fund, which is made, has been established to deal with the social needs of the contributors to Social Security and the social needs of the nation, not to fund a national health insurance pilot project. Because the pilot project is over and no funding mechanism in place, how will it sustain itself? We need to look at it carefully, and rushing into a national health insurance pilot project without due consideration to all the issues about sustainability is a mistake. And I believe that this has nothing to do with it.
It does not seem fair, and it's not fair. However, I'd say that first of all, I don't think that it is a national health insurance scheme. I would like to consider it as a national health assistance scheme. Here are the reasons. It covers children who are 5 years and under. It covers people who are 65 years and older. And it does not address major medical issues, meaning that if that 5-year-old child had a brain tumor, there's no coverage. If that 65-plus-year-old person were to fall and break their hip, there's no coverage. So it is really a primary health care facility, which I think is a good thing, because we in the Department believe that is absolutely critical to ensure that we actually have a healthy society where we try to have all of our citizens have health checks at least twice a year, but then have a comprehensive medical insurance plan that will cover all citizens for major medical issues. So the thrust towards primary health care, I subscribe to it. I like that aspect. But let me say that today, it is providing some relief to many families. children 5 years and under, and folks who are 65 and older. But like Mr. Banks has indicated, I too am very concerned about the funding going forward. So we have to look at that. But the idea of having some form of preventative health care and some support mechanism to help seniors and small children, I think it's a good start. Thank you.
Prior to 2010, the Social Development Fund from Social Security was used to pay for jazz festivals and things like that. So it would seem that for Social Security to say, let's set up a national health initiative. And this is a pilot program. They looked at several different countries and their national insurance funds. They looked at Jamaica, Belize, etc. Now, none of these would apply specifically to Anguilla. So what the Social Security Board wants to do is to see this program has a specified lifetime of 1 year. See what it requires to take care of our senior citizens who are older than 65. See what it takes to take care of our children who are less than 5. And then, based on that, you will know what it requires in our primary care system, using the health authority and private physicians, how much money it requires to take care of that population. That then can be extrapolated into what becomes the National Health Fund, which was passed in 2008 under the Anguilla United Front government. However, it has not been implemented, maybe for the same reasons that the funding has not been worked out. But I think that in terms of taking care of the working population, as you determine how much money is spent to the National Health Insurance Fund, the National Health Insurance, then you can extrapolate this into the National Health Fund where there will be a payroll deduction. Right now, private insurers such as Nagico, Sanjico, etc., they're taking care of, and D3 I heard, and they're taking care of patients. But there's a big cost because secondary care is done overseas, and that takes a lot of money, $450,000 to have anything done abroad. When we bring in specialists into Anguilla who are here to take care of patients here, that will take the burden off one of the costing systems, and then maybe the National Health Fund can be implemented and paid for in Anguilla.
First of all, I think that we've lost our way on this issue. The point is, what I'm saying is that the National Health Insurance pilot product is a product that is funded of the Social Development Fund. There's no provision for it to go beyond next year. We need to have something more robust than that. Secondly, we should not use the funds simply to fund some of the Anguillas. We should provide limited coverage for all. And I think that the issue of the jazz that was mentioned by Mr. Bedford, that is a part of the issues that the Social Development Fund need to respond to, the development culture, the support for the students in the music department of the Anguilla Constitution. And think of this nation. The National Health Insurance Fund, as it is constituted, is a very serious issue.
After our bread and butter industry, tourism, what do you see as the second best area for development in order to help diversify the Anguillan economy?
I think after tourism, and Mr. Banks mentioned earlier about all the different diversifications we can do in tourism, the second is fishing. Because we have 200 miles of ocean, which has been untapped, except in the 50-mile zone. I think that someone mentioned that there was $20 million brought in by fishing, and one of the questions last night. Well, I think that can be immediately doubled just by having a licensing scheme. Because we are fishing the waters and we are not doing it, others are doing it. If we enforce selling licenses to them to fish out there in the deep, then I think that that would enhance our economy by putting money into the treasury. I think along with that, we then develop industries around fishing, such as fish processing, which can employ people so that we can then have markets. And then we have to fly the fish up. When I say fish, I mean all sea creatures. With that, we can develop around that a marine science center so that we can test our waters, make sure that it continues to be healthy. We do have runoffs from our different development projects. There will be marinas. We have to look into the impact of those on our fishing industry. And these are things that are necessary, and I'm sure that my fishermen in District 1 are going to be looking closer to see that we're not hampering the industry for them and for their children and their children's children. So fishing is important. But on top of that, I think that we have to incorporate medical tourism, because I think that that is important. Angola has wonderful people, it has a great environment, and we have investors who are interested in developing our medical sector so that we have a facility here where people can be taken care of here. The profits from that can be used to subsidize care for Angolans. Thank you.
There are several areas which support tourism, accommodate tourism as the other sector of industry that can support the economy. Of course, the alternative energy sector is a transformational industry because it impacts all other industries. But I agree with this direction that we have a resource in our exclusive economic zone, 300 miles to the north, which has not been explored, which can bring considerable resources to the government of Angola. We need to exploit those resources to the benefit of all people. Those have not been exploited. You may not be able to do it physically with the population that we have, who have interest in this sector, but we can also have partners with different countries of the world where they have fishermen, the technical skills to exploit those waters and license it, as has been done in Falklands and other parts of the world. So I believe the fisheries industry is the industry that we should place a lot of emphasis on in trying to support our tourism industry as the main driver for it.
I think first of all, we can make tourism work. Tourism has not worked yet for Angola, meaning that the occupancy in our hotels has still been around 35–40% for many, many years, and tourism has not really been given a chance to work in Angola yet. We are yet to maximize the potential from tourism in Angola. But I think it's important for us to diversify our economy, because it is very, very risky for us to have an economy that is relying on one industry. And like Mr. Banks, thanks for seeing renewable energy as transformational, because that is something part of the platform. Renewable energy is transformational, and we ought to pursue that. It positions Angola well for investment. I agree with Mr. Webster here that certainly fishing is something that we must exploit. I don't necessarily agree with the approach, but certainly it is something that we ought to look at. I believe in the economic residency plan, great potential. I believe that we should allow our locally owned hotel properties to allow timeshare, and that would allow us to have those hotel rooms occupied year-round, even during the so-called off-season. And by the way, there are some countries that don't have off-season because of the way they market their product. It might change the price, but it's no off-season. There's an opportunity for us to look at agriculture in a meaningful way, using techniques from places like this year. There's a need for us to suddenly expand this engaged medical school, introduce a nursing school, marine biology school. Whatever we do, we need to ensure that there is sustainability built in Angola's development. And at the moment, our economy crashed because it was poorly managed, one, and we were relying on tourism too, because our numbers in 2010 fell to as low as 57,000 long-stay visitors. Thank you very much.
Do you support the free movement of professional people of CARICOM nations across the region to seek employment or residency?
I have very, very mixed feelings of this. In the short term, I'm very concerned about it. The thing is, we have failed to develop our people. Our governments over the years have failed to develop the human capacity in Angola to effectively compete. So you will see very few people from Angola going to other European countries to work. But what we are likely to see is a major influx of people coming to Angola to take up the key jobs. This was announced just in Antigua just a few days ago, where they have actually removed the work permit requirements for other Caribbean nationals. It is something that is concerning, but it's going to be thrusted upon us. So we need to get our people geared up quickly, ramped up quickly with education and skill them up to compete in a very flat Caribbean and by extension, a very flat world. Thank you.
I too have mixed feelings about this because my premise is that Angolans first. And so I feel that if we allow professionals to just have the freedom of movement into Angola, that can dilute certain professions. And so we may become, there will be a lot of certain professions here, which then adds to a competition. And I don't think that Angolans should have to compete for jobs in their own country. And so this is the feeling that I have. I certainly agree that there should be some freedom of movement, that if we need certain professionals from the CARICOM nations in Angola, that we should relax the work permit requirements. We shouldn't have to have their children have to pay yearly fees to be here once they're here. But certainly I think we have to take that very carefully, that we must always make sure that Angolans are always first to get a job, always first to take over, and always first in their managerial positions. But certainly I think that there should be some lifting of restrictions, but certainly we have to do it in a manner that Angolans are not pushed out of their own country.
I don't think that Angola is ready for a reciprocal relationship as it relates to professionals moving to the Caribbean, because we have a limited amount of jobs jurisdiction, and we will be opening ourselves to jobs from over 8 countries, 7 countries in the OECS, and a number of countries in the Caribbean. We need to ensure that we are not placed at a disadvantage in that regard. Or I agree with Mr. Webster that we must be able to give some support, when it's required, to nationals from the Caribbean, professionals especially, when there's a need for them to have an opportunity in Angola. And we don't have the ability to provide the human resources for a particular area. Those are the persons that we should turn to first. And through the process, we develop to the point where we'll be able to understand and compete, and have a reciprocal relationship with the rest of the islands in the region. Just today, there was a news item saying that St. Lucia has had an agreement for free movement of people from some islands in the Caribbean, and Angola was included. I don't think that that's exactly it. So, Mr. Webster, you need to, Dr. Webster, you need to have a look at that and ensure that the AU government has not made any agreements behind our back. I'm sure that that has not been done, but we live in a region where we have to continue to have functional integration. We have to have a functional integration where we can benefit from that integration, but we certainly cannot have integration to the level we allow ourselves to be small on the other larger islands. We have much more population and resources than we can. Thank you very much.
The reality is that the floodgates are going to be forced open across the region, and we are going to get ready for it. What we need to do, however, is we have got to inspire our Angolans to take advantage of every opportunity to follow their education. We have a community college in Angola, and it's sad that most of the people attending community college in Angola are not Angolans. And somehow Angolans have lost hope. They tend to think that education is not that important, which is concerning, and we are addressing it. We even have some politicians who go around saying that education is not important. What's important is experience and common sense and values. All those things are important, but education is also very important. We've got to inspire our people to recognize the importance of education and position themselves to take advantage of opportunities both now and in the future.
What lessons should we have learned as a people from this great recession, and what should guide us going forward?
I'm amused by the fact that my opponents on this day tonight, as well as in the wider media, make a judgment that I believe I can fund myself on the basis of the last 18 months of administration. I've been Minister of Finance for 16 years. I've been Minister of the Government of Angola long before that, since 1984, Minister of Finance, and going back to 1981 as Minister of Social Development. and many recognition toward that period has been successful. However, in 2008, the economy fell, and our government, which had put in place a program of development which was creating a boom within this economy, found itself in a situation where the result that we could say was not sufficient to assist us in the period going forward. And we had assumed that perhaps the recession would not hold as long as it has. The fact is that the present government has had an additional 4.5 years, and they have not been able to resolve a number of those issues which have come as a result of that. I'm saying to the people of Bengal that in 2010, when we debated office, the government coming in did not have to deal with a deficit of $70 million. That $70 million was already mentioned. We have put in place a policy-based loan initiative with the Caribbean Development Bank to deal with the issues of the debt that was on the books. Today, when we got office, the debt was $171 million. Today, the debt on the books is $231 million, and that does not include $30 million more to the public service and $12 million more to average.
Well, yes, Angola, like most places in the world, was impacted by the global recession. Angola, unfortunately, was the worst affected island in OECS member states as reported by the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank report on the performance of the economies in the sub-region. In that report, you can look at the reports for 2010-11 as baseline. Angola fell off the cliff, and our economy contracted some 27%. Angola's real problem is reckless management of the finances of this country by the Angola United Front. Now, in 2005, the facts are here, so I'm not exaggerating. You can go and have a look at it yourself. In 2005, Angola's budget was $102 million. By 2009, Angola's budget was $243 million, plus a capital budget of $95 million. Reckless and irresponsible. Reckless and irresponsible. In 2007, the government of Angola increased their salaries by 20%. By 2008, when the world economy had already started giving signs of contraction, the government of Angola increased their salaries by 25%. Reckless and irresponsible. That's why you are paying higher taxes in this country right now. These are the facts. The AUM government had no choice but to find a way to raise taxes. But what they have done wrong, to my mind, is that they have not come up with a recovery plan that would have benefited this country over the last 4 or 5 years, that would bring some relief to people who are hurting because they're unemployed and they're struggling. There are many hungry people in this country now, and they were some hungry people in this country back in 2009-10 as well.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I think that is tantamount to know that even though the United Front had rapid growth in the economy, what they call the glory years, that it crashed in 2008, and by 2010 we did have a large deficit. We did have bills that were unpaid by the end of 2009, and we did have the banks overdrawn. But I'd like to use Mr. Banks' own words from the budget speech of 2000. He said all too often the need to achieve sustainable economic development causes the focus of government to be tilted too much towards achieving rapid and continuous growth in the economy. The United Front government is committed to balanced economic and social as well as constitutional and political development. He didn't do that. He also said in the budget of 2001, prudent government means that we have to develop and implement a borrowing policy and plan that is responsible and affordable and does not mortgage the future of succeeding generations to the repayment of loans which it does not deficit that we found ourselves in. And the Anglo United movement, when they came to power, would have been able to advance what they had planned. Now that was not possible because we had to work our way out of that, stabilize the economy, and keep 330 plus civil servants in a job and be sent home because we had to balance the budget. The interim civilization levy was put in place because the British refused the budget 3 times and said, unless you put in these revenue measures which were already agreed to by the United Front, such as payroll tax, goods and services taxes, and these are things that are, I think, policies that we cannot afford to go on.
Thank you.
I know, Mr. Moderator, that my opponents have not spoken about the revenue side of the equation. The government of Electoral during the period 2004 to 2008 had surpluses in the current budget. But in addition to that, we built an airport facility costing over $80 million. In addition to that, we paid for the education of the children of Electoral, $60 billion. We acquired lands for recreation purposes of various other purposes to $20 billion. We built piers and ports facilities to the tune of $13 million. We built roads to the tune of $60 million. And also, we brought $1 billion in foreign direct investment into this country. That was the result of prudent management and a plan going back to 2000, when the economy was in decline. We had 9/11.
Thank you. The net effect of what the bank has done, the net effect is that it's forced Angola into bankruptcy. Angola was bankrupt in 2010. Mr. Banks always told us about paper deficit, and maybe he can use his 30 seconds to give us a definition of paper deficit. The issues that we're facing in this country is that it was irresponsible, reckless management. In 2009, Angola was only able to raise $148 million with a budget of $243 billion, a shortfall of $95 billion. Reckless and irresponsible. May pay while the sun shines. That's something that our grandparents taught us, our parents taught us. When we got some money, put some away for a rainy day. One day, they gave us their salary increases. We took postal emoluments from 53 million to 103 million in 4 years. Reckless and irresponsible.
Now, the Chief Minister from the Anglo United Front told the people of Angola to go out and borrow money, build, and they will come. But they allowed the development to bring in Chinese workers and Indian workers who lived on the compound, ate on the compound, never infiltrated into the economy, never went to a restaurant, never did anything in the economy, and then they sent their money out every Friday afternoon by Western Union. Now these are the things that I think that are bad policies, failed policies, that we cannot afford to allow to happen again. So we can't go back to the front.
First of all, the Indians and the Chinese who came here to work did not affect their community. What they did was created by straw and a number of other problems we are experiencing today. However, I want to say to my opponents, they all talk about salaries. You need to ask the CEO of various countries and global what they salary. When public servants in Angola were not making, they don't have a salary increase since 2001.
Thank you. Thank you. ISIS continues to wage jihad against Christians, Catholics, and other non-Muslim groups. Should the United Nations have moved more aggressively to resolve the prolonged crisis in the Middle East region?
And thank you, Mr. Moderator. There are bad people throughout the world. And certainly, when you have people because of their religious zealousness cutting off the heads of people, this has to be eradicated. And the United Nations should have moved in first, but of course we always rely on the United States to get in there. Now the United States are war-weary people. They've been in Iraq, they've been in Afghanistan. the police around the world. So you can understand President Obama's reluctance to put boots on the ground to go after ISIS. When it was necessary to go and rescue those people who were on the mountain in Iraq, he sent in troops and air power and then troops to guard against the ISIS getting into Baghdad. I think that the United Nations should, as a group, because of the coalitions, make those necessary steps to say we have to take care of people wherever they are in the world. And so I think the United Nations should move first. The USA will move with them, as always. The United Kingdom does, the Australians, even the Costa Ricans. But groups like Al-Qaeda, groups like ISIS, and that's why I'm so concerned about economic citizenship, because these people can get, they have British passports, some of them, they can get into Anguilla, or if they come in as economic citizens, they then get a passport here, then they can make their way to the United States and wreak havoc, they can farm cells. So I think that certainly these groups have to be eradicated.
The United Nations is a very cumbersome organization, and when they're required to move, it's always very difficult to get the sanction of all its member states to move forward. All of them have their own political agendas. And I think that the United States has played a role in filling that gap in the years. Our concern for ISIS, organizations such as this, Al-Qaeda, and the rest of them, is that their methods do not seem to coincide with the beliefs and culture that we are accustomed to. We have been accustomed to a very brutal culture, in my experience, in terms of the way they deal with the issues that affect them. So it's important that we try to understand a lot more, but it's always difficult to accommodate some of their methods in trying to achieve their objectives. You said that one country's terrorist is another country's patriot. And I believe that we have to pay close attention to the issues that affect the persons of that region and try to ensure that governments, including the United Nations and other nations of the world, get together and really try to address these problems in a united way. Because if the United States goes in alone, then somebody says that the United States is trying to be the police of the world. When the United Nations is fully moving, we believe that because there's some nations within the United Nations who don't agree with addressing those issues. So it's a very complex issue, and I don't think that I would want to venture a solution to that today.
Yeah, I respond, but before doing that, let's talk very briefly on something that Mike said. You wanted to speak about the salaries of CEOs. If you want to get a CEO salary, come on and come there. Nobody has asked you to be a career politician. You want to make money like a CEO? Come over here and you want to perform. Because if you don't perform, you'll be fired. That's the very question.
I like that answer.
Let me comment on the ISIS issue. ISIS is not a race. ISIS is not a club. ISIS is a mentality. There are some folks who left Trinidad and joined ISIS. There are people who might leave Anguilla and join ISIS. How do you eradicate ISIS? What we must address are the fundamental injustices that exist around the world. And that's what brought ISIS into being. That's the real issue with ISIS. ISIS is not for the Middle East. ISIS, some folks from ISIS were English people who flew from England and went to join ISIS. ISIS is an idea. It's a very dangerous idea. Thank you.
In a July 8th article on ChristianPost.com, it reported that, quote, a Christian-run bakery in the UK could be facing a court case after it refused a request from a customer to make a cake featuring the Sesame Street characters Bert and Ernie, and with a slogan to support gay marriage. Asher's Baking Company in Belfast declined the order from the customer, a gay rights activist, but now we face legal action from the watchdog group, Equality Commission, and this as reported by the BBC News. Should business persons be able to refuse to serve certain customers based on their religious beliefs.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Again, this is a slippery slope because it speaks to what society will accept as a norm. And certainly we have a strong Christian background and heritage here in Anguilla. I feel that there should be freedom of religion, but the business should also have the right to say, if we're not comfortable doing this, then we should not be forced to. I don't think that it's discriminatory for them to not make a cake that has onion bread. I don't think that it's discriminatory for them to say we do not support that slogan. I think that that's a choice that they should make. You know, certainly in the United States there are organizations that did not want to accept birth control as part of their insurance mandate with Obamacare. And the Supreme Court has upheld these because on the rights of religious freedom. So I think that these are issues that are going to keep coming up. Hopefully in Anguilla, we don't have to face them as often, and hopefully we don't have to make those decisions, but we will get these as we go along as our society progresses. But I think that it is incumbent upon individual freedoms to make the choice that if the business does not do it, there should be other businesses and maybe someone else can do that. And so that would be my stance on this issue.
We are living in times when a lot of things will be tested in the court. And this is one of those things that will be tested in the court. But we need to recognize that as society evolves, the laws evolve. As Christian values are removed from our societies, the laws are going to evolve to reflect the thinking of society. I had a discussion with Bishop Brooks and Reverend Lyons about this. It's not going to be long before they are going to be forced to marry two people of the same sex, right here in Anguilla. And the law that will be passed is likely to be imposed on us by an order of council. The church in Anguilla will have to make a decision how to deal with it. Or when we choose to not marry someone, people who are gay, the church is likely to be sued. As a society, we need to start thinking about this because it's coming. I had a discussion with a senior legal person discussing this just a couple of days ago. And what she said to me, it is coming. It is closer here than you think. So these issues are issues that we too will grapple with right here in Electoral, and it's not far off. Months, year. Thank you.
The difficult issue to resolve, Mr. Moderator, because if you're in the hospitality and service industry, you should be required to serve all customers who come to your establishment. But that does not preclude a business from having a policy with regards to customers who come with particular requests of those doctors. So it is especially important when it gets over into the area of religion, and culture, and beliefs. And I think that eventually we as a country will have to face some of these issues head on. They're going to be difficult to resolve, but surely as we enter into a globalized society, globalized world, these issues and these commitments and obligations will be a part of the governance system that we have in place. We have to accommodate certain obligations as a colony, dependency of the UK. When we become independent, we have to accommodate certain policies and obligations of trading partners and of the world community who we seek to do business with and trade with. So it's a very critical area. And I think that it needs some further discussion. Thankfully, it is not here.
Now that we have arrived at the end, please tell us, how do you think your party's candidates perform in the Follow the Future debate series?
Mr. Moderator, I think our candidates have responded and performed exceptionally. And I'm grateful for these debates because it gave the audience here at the auditorium, as well as those listening on radio and other media, a chance to hear the response to questions that were raised and get an idea of the vision of our party. I believe that we have a very strong team, and it shows in their performance that we are very capable of leading Angola after the next election.
The Angola United Movement team, this is like a cricket team, you know. They got out there to bat and perform superbly. I mean, the grasp of the issues from each candidate from 1 to 7, the wealth of knowledge that was presented, the energized method in which they perform, I think it's not pride. There's no way that Mr. Banks can sit there and think that his team even measured up to our team. Here across the globe, they must put their eggs to the tree.
I believe that the Gulf team performed exceptionally well with substance. These series of debates is not about our target skills. We are talking about real solutions that we are going to make and moving Angola to a better place. So if you think it's about hype, it shouldn't be about hype, it should be about substance. And I think when it comes to substance, I think that the Gulf party performed outstanding well. Thank you. I would first of all like to thank the organizers of this series of debates. I believe it's a very healthy thing to do. But at the end of the day, we as citizens of this country, we as voters of this country, we have a choice to make. Angola as a nation, we started our journey to deliver hope and opportunity to the people of this country back in 1967. We have lost our way. Many people call the name of James Ronald Webster, but James Ronald Webster was a courageous man. James Ronald Webster is a courageous man. He led the Angola Revolution successfully. He led Angola through the formal separation from St. He started social security. There are many people in politics even now, with all kinds of degrees. When you look at their legacy today, and you look at James Ronald Webster's legacy, a man with no high school education, no tertiary education. Look at some of the leaders that we've had over the years. We've had leaders that have led this country over the fiscal precipice and have ruined the lives of many people. Many Angolans have lost hope about the future. Disillusioned. Some of them have packed their bags and have gone to live in the United States, live in Europe. I'm not making these stories up. These things actually happen. It saddens me that our people who grew up in our neighborhoods, who were given an opportunity to lead Angola to the promised land, have failed us. They were supposed to lead us to the promised land. We now have an opportunity under the able leadership of the Gulf Party to bring about some transformational changes to our economy and to our society. I am confident with a team with men of character like Dr. Clifton Niles, men experienced like George Kentish, and an able man who understands grassroots issues like Hope Richardson. We can put Angola in a better place. I look forward to serving the people of this country faithfully going into the next decade and beyond. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. The young man of 32 years of age, I made the decision to return to Angola and serve Mr. Webster and the government on his request. He began as the advisor advisor. And I'm proud of my record of service. I did not choose, as Mr. Hart said, the power of CEO of a company. But I believe that the responsibilities of a minister of government, the leader of the country, as he continues to compare with that of the CEO of a company, should at least allow young people who dedicated themselves to service to be able to advance themselves in life, in personal advancement in life. So because you choose to be a CEO of a company and make your way to management on the backs of the people, of the customers in a monopoly, does not recommend you to be well paid more so than someone who dedicated their life to the contribution and development of their country. I believe that I've made that contribution, and I believe that we need to encourage young men, not persons who have made their fortunes in the corporate world, who know this that because they have made their fortune, they cannot come into government and make a contribution without been well compensated. The fact is, if you want to encourage young people who have been trained to participate in Angola's development and the level of the elected representatives, they have got to be attracted to do that. That is how we're going to build Angola. And I think that the time has come for us as people in Angola to understand that it's important that we unite as a people and stop having this kind of attitude which seeks to divide on the basis of who they are and what they represent. In the Angola United Front has come as a result of two parties, the Angola National Alliance and the Angola Democratic Party, coming together because we believe it was important to take Angola forward. And taking Angola forward, we did it. And I'm proud of that. And I believe that in 2015, we as a party will take Angola forward once again.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I'd like to commend the Literary and Debating Society for this excellent debate that they put on. I am so happy to participate so that the people of Angola can get to know what the Angola United Movement has done and will do when you re-elect us into the government. Ms. Morena, you've done a great job of having a civil control of this proceedings tonight, and so I'd like to thank you also. Now, my team of able-bodied, energetic, young, intelligent candidates has represented themselves well. The trend in the Caribbean these days is to go towards a younger politician, one born in the 60s and later. And so you've seen it in Montserrat, you've seen it in Antigua. 47-year-olds for Mr. Brown, born in 1962, Mr. Romeo in Montserrat. And so I think that it is time for us to thank Mr. Banks for his service and have him continue. We cannot go back to the front. Not with our children need to be educated. Not with our banks to rescue. Not with our healthcare system to fix. Not with the economy on the rebound so that we allow the United Front to take it back to where it was between 2008 and 2010. We cannot allow that to happen. The prescription of the Angola United Front is have a surplus, raise your salary. Have a deficit, make it larger. Economic downturn, borrow more money. And then set it up so that our kids have to pay it, and their kids. If you can't afford health care, hope you don't get sick. If you dig into the water table and contaminate our water source, well, that's the price of progress. That is the values that the Angola United Front bring to you. And so I say, the Angola United Movement will not burden you with that. We will continue to move Angola forward. We will make sure that we have economic progress, that our children are educated, that our healthcare system is fixed so that we can stay here to get healthcare here. You know,